So I wanted to talk a little bit about how after a spiritual awakening and when we enter the dark night of the soul, that we can suddenly find that life becomes very lonely for us, but it's a loneliness that we're comfortable with. And quite surprising to maybe how we used to be when we had an ego, or had a bigger ego, I should say, or a fake ego. We might have been distracting from that ego, so we'd be out all the time, or we'd be with friends all the time, or we'd be watching telly, or doing whatever it was to do to distract ourselves. So that created a busy life for us. But after your spiritual awakening, you'll find that your identity that you had installed into you from a childhood, through the conditioning, through generational beliefs, through societal beliefs, and trying to live up to the proverbial good human book that someone wrote somewhere once upon a time. I will do another video on that because it's a favourite topic of mine. This person, whoever it was, who wrote the rule book that we all try and pay attention to of how we should be as humans. It's so wonderful how that come into existence and we all pay attention to it. And it's not an actual book, by the way. I just have to digress. So it's not an actual book. I call it a book because we love to say things like you don't get no rule books with kids. However, when a child is born, no, we don't have a rule book, but we do pass down the rules that have been put onto us, onto those kids, and we wonder why things never change. However, I digress as usual, but we can feel very lonely because there's a few things that are going on there when that happens. The first one that you're going to notice is that when you're talking to someone, they're not going to be able to accept the person that you are at the moment. They're going to sense that something about you is different from how you normally are. And that's because fundamentally you are different. You know you're different. And for yourself personally at that moment when you're talking to someone, not only are you now a different person from what you was before your spiritual awakening, everything you see, feel, touch, everything around you, you feel different about your life in general. So therefore, what they're saying to you becomes almost uninteresting now. And whilst you're trying to, so not only are you dealing with not being interested in what they're saying, you're also having to try and fake that you are interested in what they're saying. After a spiritual awakening, faking things becomes very, very difficult because you like to be authentic. It's not even a case of you like to be, it's so hard to explain. It's not even that you like to be authentic. It's that you now are authentic. And because of that authenticity that runs through you, you find it hard to stand here and have a conversation with someone because you feel like you're being fake to both them and yourself. So that makes the conversation very difficult on that part. The other thing that's going on there as well is that person has gone through the similar conditioning that you have, schooling system, generational beliefs, family beliefs, etc. So they've had all that conditioning. So their ego is in place. They're talking to you via that ego, via that false self. They're talking to you for that. But also on top of that, they've known you for however long it is. They've known you for how many years or whatever. You've also conditioned them to believe that you're a certain way. So the person that you've always shown up as is the person that they think you still are. So now when they hear you talking differently about things, or maybe showing less of an interest in stuff that they're saying, they can take that personally. And because they might take that personally, they might become sensitive during the conversation. And that's why you can feel very lonely after a spiritual awakening, even when you're talking to people that are very close to you. Hence why a lot of people split up with their partners. I know I was one of them. Very shortly after my spiritual awakening, I pretty much walked away from everything there was in my life. And that includes friends and stuff that I've walked away from. And that's a whole nother video. But that's a point why you might feel very lonely, is because of all those things that are going on. And this is the main thing as well that you've got to really realise with anytime we split up with anyone, or anything, pets, animals, you know, family, friends, whatever, it doesn't matter. Even sometimes if I lost this hat, I'd be upset. So we can attach to things. So when we split up with something, we have to go through withdrawal symptoms from them and a grieving process. So now you imagine, for however many years you've been alive, you've been living through your egoic self. Now suddenly that egoic self has disappeared, which means that your identity, the person that you was, has also disappeared. So guess what? The person that you are now is grieving for the loss of that person at the same time as trying to accept who you now are, at the same time as trying to move forward in life and survive and maybe even thrive, but not knowing where you want to go, not knowing what you want to do, because everything's fallen away. So it leaves you on this blank canvas. And it's at that point where you can feel incredibly lonely and incredibly frustrated. And a lot of these videos that I'm doing are for the guys that are caught in that. By the way, let me just say this, because I know that some people might be watching this in America or wherever, whatever country. The word guys in England applies to men and women. Okay, so I'm English, you can tell. Guys is that's not generated towards men. I don't know if it is in America or not, but I thought I'd better point that out. It's men, male and female in England. So that's why a lot of us will feel. Sorry, I was saying these videos. A lot of this is towards those guys who are currently stuck at that point, because it's at that point. There's no time frame on this, by the way. You kind of have your spiritual awakening. You enter the dark night of the soul. It could be the next day that you feel like this. It could be a year later that you start feeling this blankness, this emptiness. But it's an emptiness that you're not sure how you fill up. And that's another video as well. But it's one of these situations where when you're in that mode, if you can understand all the things that I've just said, and I'm aware I've gone around the houses a little bit with it, I am trying to get more succinct. I've actually got notes in front of me and I'm still going off topic. But that's kind of what happens with a spiritual awakening, with a dark night of the soul. There's so much going on in my head when I'm doing these videos. It's crazy because there's so many avenues that I want to explain. There's so many different scenarios that I want to get across to you guys who might be struggling. And I'm not the most natural at doing this stuff. I'm just trying my best. But this is why I'm practicing. I want to get it more succinct. I want to get it more direct so I can go straight to a point with you guys. But if you are at that point at the moment where it's blank, where it's empty, relax with that. Breathe into that. Surrender to it. Just accept that it's there because you've said goodbye to your old self. You've said goodbye to maybe friends. You've said goodbye to even how you used to communicate with old friends. And now you're feeling like nobody understands you, nobody gets you, and you're trying to move forward at the same time. Concentrate on moving forward. How do I get rid of this emptiness? What do I put into me to get rid of this emptiness? There's nothing you need to put into you to get rid of that emptiness. It will just fill itself up. It could be a little bit different from that, but so that you can understand it for this video and so that I can explain it. I sometimes don't have the vocabulary to say what it is that I like to say, but that void, whatever it is that you're feeling, will fill itself up by either you becoming something, you just start becoming something that grows into that space. So it's not a material thing that comes in from the outside and fills you up. You just start filling up all the voids in you. And that makes you a much more wholesome and authentic person. I hope that makes sense. I feel like sometimes I've not explained myself properly. But what I don't want to do with these early videos is get into a habit of going back, watching it, editing it, taking bits out. I might do occasionally if I really have gone on the waffle. But I also I think it's healthy for those guys who are caught in that situation to see that you're not the only ones who feel maybe confusion. You're not the only ones who, when you're in this place, have lots to say and don't know how to say it, don't know how to get your message across. And that's where I'm currently at now. So my spiritual awakening was 2 years ago, a little bit longer than that now. I'm in the dark night of the soul. I'm very comfortable with it now, but I went through a phase where I didn't know if I would be here much longer. And it's you guys that I really, really want to get across. And also guys who were, like I say before, floating around they've had this and now they're just enjoying watching other people who have become spiritually aware, spiritually alive, if you like. Yeah, that's all I've got to say, guys. So if you're still here, again, guys, it's 11.5 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the wonderful comments that you guys give me. They're very uplifting. They're very motivating. I will get better at this. I will get more succinct. I will get straight to the point. I've got a list of topics that I want to cover. I'm now just trying to learn how to speak about an individual topic without digressing off to a million different areas. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, guys, thank you so much and take care.